We've seen the structure of the federal court system. So now let's talk about the state court system. And state court systems are structured very similarly, but there are some differences. So let's see what they are. And as an example, I'll use the California state court system. But just keep in mind that every state's court system is a little different. So if you want to know how a particular state's court system is structured, you may have to do some research to see how the court system for that state might be similar or different. Now, like the federal court system, every state court system has a high court. A high court. And that court operates a lot like the United States Supreme Court does. It grants certiorari to review the decisions of lower courts. Now, it isn't always called the Supreme Court in every state, but in California, the High Court does happen to be called the Supreme Court, the California Supreme Court. So that's what this box is, the California Supreme Court. And just like the federal court system, directly below the High Court is an intermediate layer. An intermediate layer. And in the federal court system, remember, we called the courts in this intermediate appellate layer the circuit courts, right? The circuit courts. But in the California court system, the state court system, we just call this intermediate layer the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal. All right. Now, there are a few things to note about the Court of Appeal. First, remember that the circuit courts in the federal court system, that they're officially called the United States Court of Appeals for the name of the circuit, right? So, for example, the Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. But in the California state court system, we don't call the intermediate appellate court the Court of Appeals. We call it the Court of Appeal with no S, right? That's just something you want to keep in mind if you ever happen to be in the California Court of Appeal. If you're there and you say you're in the Court of Appeals, people are likely to think, aha, this is amateur hour. This person must not be from around here because he doesn't know that around here we call it the Court of Appeal, not the Court of Appeals. All right, so the second thing to note about the California Court of Appeal is that it uses some familiar terms, but it uses them differently. In the California state court system, the intermediate appellate layer is divided into what we call districts. The California Court of Appeal has districts. There are 6 districts in the California Court of Appeal. The first district, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth. Right? Remember that in the federal court system, the appellate courts are divided into circuits. Right? Let's look back at our federal court map. Right? The intermediate appellate layer was divided into circuits, and each circuit had its own court, and the circuit courts hear the appeals from the trial courts, which are called district courts. But in the California state court system, the appellate court is divided into districts. There are no circuits. They're divided into districts. And in each district of the California Court of Appeal hears appeals from the trial courts of that district. So the term district is used differently by the federal court system and the California state court system. So be sure that you use the term correctly. So each district of the California Court of Appeal is responsible for hearing the appeals from the trial courts in that district. Right? So we've got the different trial courts within each district. And the trial courts in the California state court system are called something different. Obviously, they can't be called district courts. So in the California state court system, the trial courts are called the superior courts. The superior courts. Right? There's a separate superior court for each county. Each county has its own superior court. So if we look at a map of the state, let's come down here and take a look at a map of the state. We can see that the state is divided into 6 districts, and they're color-coded here on this map. Right? There's a different color for each of the districts. And each of the districts is divided into counties. That's what these little divisions are, and they're all labeled. Right? Now each of these counties has its own superior court. And as I said, the Superior Court is the trial court of the California state court system, right? So in the first district, we had counties that are colored blue, like San Francisco, Marin, and Napa. In the second district, which is green on this map, let's see, we've got LA, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo. And then in the fifth district, the orange district, we've got counties like Fresno, Kings, and Kern counties. All right, so now let's go back up to our diagram and fill this in. So in the first district, we had the San Francisco Superior Court, we had the Marin Superior Court, and Napa. And there were several others. These are just a few examples. And remember, in the second district, we had LA County, so the LA Superior Court, Los Angeles County Superior Court. What else did we have? We had Santa Barbara. And we had San Luis Obispo. I think there was one other one, Ventura County Superior Court. And then in the fifth district, we had Fresno Superior Court, and we had Kings County Superior Court, and Kern, and there were several others. All right, so that's the way the structure works. We've got a separate Superior Court for each county, and there are several counties within each district of the Court of Appeal. All right, so the next thing to note about the California Court of Appeal is that it's technically one court. It's just one court. Right? So in the federal court system, let's go back and look at our federal court diagram. In the federal court system, there was a separate circuit court, or I should say there is a separate circuit court for each circuit. Each circuit has its own court of appeals. So the Second Circuit has its own court, and the Ninth Circuit has its own court. And these courts are separate jurisdictions, so they don't necessarily follow each other's decisions. But the California Court of Appeal, the State Court of Appeal, the California Court of Appeal is just one big court. It's just one court. Now, that's why I've drawn this box here as one big continuous and connected whole, right? The districts of the California Court of Appeal are just parts of one unified court. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, in the federal court system, each circuit has its own court, and each court is a separate court, right? Each circuit court is its own separate court. And the trial courts inside of each circuit are bound by the decisions of that circuit court. But the trial courts are not bound by the decisions of other circuit courts, right? Because they're not in that circuit. Okay? In the California state court system, we only have one court of appeal. Sure, it's divided into districts, right? But technically, it's one unified court. So that means while appeals from the San Francisco Superior Court may go to the first district of the California Court of Appeal, and appeals from Los Angeles may go to the second district of the California Court of Appeal. All of the superior courts are bound by all of the decisions of the California Court of Appeal, right? If the fifth district Court of Appeal makes a ruling on a particular issue, the San Francisco Superior Court is technically bound by that ruling, even though it's in the first district. Okay? This is an important difference from the federal court system.